I leaned into this concept of life pillars. I know some people like values, and for whatever reason, life pillars has always resonated for me. And so the words that resonate for me are movement, stillness, and connection with an overarching lens of curiosity to lead my days. And if I can make decisions on a daily basis that lean into those and then just stack those days on top of each other, that's a fulfilling life to me. And so if I can just integrate activities, whether that's dancing, yoga, running, talking with people one to one or in group settings, and then just trying to let go of expectations as much as possible, as difficult as that may be, that has led to opportunities that I couldn't have dreamed of previously.
Hello, hi everybody. I'm very excited to come back to our Changemaker stories. Today I am here with Cole Johnson. Hi, Cole.
Hey, Catherine, great to be here.
Thank you so much for being here, Cole, and everybody. Thank you so much for joining in this Changemaker stories. As you know now, I feature stories of people who have walked the path of change, transition, and I'm very excited to bring Cole today with us. And Cole will be sharing his transition journey and everything around this life adventure around transition. And yeah, I'm really excited. Let's dig in. Cole, would you like to introduce yourself in any way that you see fit for the audience here who would like to get to know you a little bit?
Thanks so much, Catherine. Wonderful to be here. I see myself as a very creative, deep, and explorative soul. And I would say that I didn't know that about myself for the longest time, or maybe I didn't give myself that opportunity to explore the depths within myself, or even the opportunities that are available to myself and really anyone in this world. And I would say that that has really set the stage for the exploration that I've been on over the last several years. And so it's been a beautiful journey of exploration that I wouldn't trade for anything. Certainly has not been an easy one, but yeah, wouldn't trade any of it for anything. And just grateful to be here today and to dive in and see where we go.
Yeah, fantastic. I love those words that you shared. And what was the moment that you realized that, wow, I am this person? And I wonder what happened. Would you like to tell us more about that?
It's interesting because that has been more of a recent discovery. I would say my whole life I spent, I guess, going with the programming of what everyone else told me I should be doing or what I just thought I should be doing and staying in the background, not speaking what my true voice really was. And I was in a book club and there were these online prompts and I just started sharing what turned out to be my real voice. And the other people in the book club shared with me, they said, Cole, do you write for a living? Are you an author? I've never heard anything like this. And I was so taken aback and humbled by that. I thought, wow, I should explore this inner voice that I didn't know I had somehow, some way, somewhere. Because, like I said, I was up until that point always staying in the background, just doing what I was told, and I never even thought to question it up until that point. And that really started the inner journey, and that was fall of 2020. And so it was really interesting how it's been a explorative journey really since that point. There were things preceding that that started to give me little hints that maybe I was not feeling well inside, but this was really an awakening for me.
Do you know why I'm so curious about that is I think I hear this again and again from people. There are many stories and I don't want to generalize anything, but I think there is this expectation that we have to be a certain way. And I like to say to people that I feel as someone from Asia, I feel this pressure of, you always have to be a certain way. There is this image that is important for Asian people. And but then when I moved to Europe, it is the same but different. But essentially, we are the same. That we are kind of like carrying this heavy expectations about being a certain way. And I love that you shared that you also felt like you couldn't share your voice. I'm sure many can relate, regardless where they come from, because I certainly could relate with you. And in your story, mind sharing with us how you think that happened? And I know that in my story, it's really stemmed, in the childhood and how my parents and the cultural conditioning. But just curious about, on your side of the story, Cole.
Yeah, it's interesting. What's coming to me, I feel like I volley between saying I don't care what other people think, but knowing deep down that I do still care what other people do think, because we do have this desire to belong with whoever it is, right? And we know at the end of the day we're not going to be liked or resonate with everyone, and that's totally okay. But I think that can be a journey for everyone, and it's at a different pace for everyone. And I think that can be such a journey to go on and accept that it just doesn't happen overnight, and that is just a continual journey for me. And I think probably for the first 25 years of my life, I just thought, well, this is it. I'm going to be surrounded by people always that will be telling me what I am supposed to be doing and telling me how to live. And I will never find anybody that will truly resonate with me because, like I said, I didn't even know that I had a voice. And so when I actually found people that resonated with me, it opened up a new world that I didn't know could be explored. So it's interesting how sometimes I volley back and forth between this notion of I don't care what people think, but I know I still do at the end of the day a little bit. So it's this interesting back and forth that
Yeah.
I play. Yeah.
Yeah. And what would be your advice for people who feel like they haven't found their voice?
It's starting from within and really just trying to tune out the noise of the external world and just really trying to sit with yourself long enough, even though that's going to be uncomfortable, odds are. But I really feel like
Mm.
that's where it often starts. And even though eventually for me it did start with hearing something from the outside world, I had started to sit with myself and just listen to, yep, maybe I had started to hear those signs, like I mentioned, of there's got to be something else here. And I think it can be so easy in this fast paced world to just keep on going and not even give ourselves a chance to slow down and realize that there might be actually something else out there for us and within ourselves to be cultivated and unearthed.
Do you have a book to recommend?
Well, it's interesting because this, I don't even know if it was necessarily the context of the book. It was just the actual one itself. It was Brave Enough by Jesse Diggins. And maybe the title is really an apt title for what we're talking about. It was being brave enough to be who you are, share your voice and everything. And yeah, that's really what the story is about. And so that was what did it for me at the time, back a few years ago. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. And tell us more about your transition story and how it all started, and also how you transitioned in that journey.
Yeah. So preceding all of this, all of these happenings in 2020, I would say my lowest point in life was probably 2015, 16, where I had reached this point where I felt so deeply disconnected from myself, others, and the world around me, where I thought, would it would it be so bad? Would anyone truly miss me if my presence just left this planet? Right? That's I feel like a lot of people can resonate with that in one way or another. And I not only had contemplated suicide, but I had gotten to the
Hmm.
point where I had made the decision to basically act on it. It was a when, not if scenario. And I had decided how was taken care of. And even
Wow.
reflecting back now, I the only thing that really I feel stopped me was this inner voice that said, not yet. It was really those two words that kept me from going through with it. I really don't remember anything else much besides that. And an action I took, which was I saw people, my fellow, I guess, classmates just running outside on our college campus. And I said, well, that seems like a decent activity to try. I was always an athlete growing up, and that I tried it a little bit in high school, but I never really felt connected to it. But they look happy and they look content. That was the literal thought that I had. And I thought, let me give that a shot because the alternative isn't that happy of a thought. And so let me give this a shot and just see where it goes. I just gave myself an indefinite period of time. And so, yeah, it was this inner voice and the literal act of running that kept me going for that period of time. And here we are.
Wow. I had to stop right there because it must have been such an intense moment for you. And thank you for sharing that with us. And and that was a time that you felt like the lowest point in your life. Was that because you didn't like what you were doing professionally, and or there's just many factors happening at the same time?
Yeah, so this was my junior year of college, and I think I had just come to a point where I realized that my self-hatred and resentment had gotten to a point where I felt such just this wave of all of that where I didn't know how to go on. I didn't know that there was a way forward. And so this was my literal and figurative one foot in front of the other moment, right? Literally with the running, and then I guess figurative with following this inner voice and just forging into the unknown and seeing what would happen. Because I
Mm.
obviously didn't know what the future would hold, but I thought I would give it a shot, even though I certainly did not want to.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think that there are just so many stories around how we are not kind to ourselves. It's really hard to be kind to self sometimes, and I'm saying this because I'm doing that to myself, right? Obviously, from my own journey, it's just much easier to be self-destructive. Not sure how that started. Um, and maybe because of the expectations that the world put on us, or what we see, and maybe the years of conditioning of being compared to someone else. And that's really the recurring patterns that I also see for myself. I'm really trying to reprogram my mind and to train my mind, and something I'm passionate about mental fitness as well, because we were never taught at school on how to train your mind to be kind to self, and how important that is. So um, thank you so much for sharing that, Cole. Any specific recommendations on people now, who watch this? Likely they are in transition, they want to redesign their careers, they want to pivot, and they don't know how, whether is it really a thing to actually find a purpose-driven career. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I what was coming to mind as you were speaking there was we talked about it a little bit today is we live in such a fast-paced world, and I feel like so many either don't know that they have an option or they just don't know how to slow down enough and often enough to
Mm.
actually tap into the inner wisdom that's already within us and what we actually want to do and what we're good at. And so I feel like the practices that I've cultivated over the last few years have helped me slow down enough on a consistent basis to actually lean into my heart, my intuition. And certainly I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm trying my best every day to just lean into that. And that guides me every single day. And I'll take that any day over living a fast paced life where the path is uncertain, because the path is going to be uncertain regardless. And so I'd rather be much more tuned into my heart and my intuition. And so to answer your question, I leaned into these this concept of life pillars. I know some people like values, and for whatever reason, life pillars has always resonated for me. And so the words that resonate for me are movement, stillness, and connection, with an overarching lens of curiosity to lead my days. And if I can make decisions on a daily basis that lean into those, and then just stack those days on top of each other, that's a fulfilling life to me. And so if I can just integrate activities, whether that's dancing, yoga, running, talking with people one to one or in group settings, and then just trying to let go of expectations as much as possible, as difficult as that may be, that has led to opportunities that I couldn't have dreamed of previously.
I love that. And I have a question for someone who says, I love connection, but I'm an introverted and I have social anxiety. I hear a lot as well, because people assume that I am an extroverted. And I'm kind of both. Okay, I don't have social anxiety, but I think it would not be 100% correct to say that I am full extroverted because I have my moments that I really want to not be surrounded by people. And then the comments like this often appeared. So I'm just curious if you have an opinion around that, maybe some advice to share.
I would also consider myself to still be more introverted. Granted, I mean, I don't necessarily always like labels because it sometimes can pin us into a box, of course. However, I still consider myself to be more introverted when if we are going to go down that road. And so I think when I think of that concept, I always think about just protecting my energy and going into scenarios or just rooms that really make me feel alive and knowing what that looks and feels like. So for me, I tend to go more towards the one-to-one conversations than the group experience. Not that I won't go into a group experience, but I've tested different scenarios of connection and just seeing, okay, where do I actually thrive? Where do I feel good during and after? And not to say I won't go into a group container, but I just know where I thrive more often than not. And that's all through experimentation, right? And I think that's really the name of the game in this life. You try something, you see how it feels, and then
Mhm.
you reflect afterwards, and then you try something else.
And I also like to touch on that because I think some people have the assumption that, oh, communities are only for the extroverts. And and I know that, we don't want to put people into boxes. And I think there are some people out there who would appreciate that to hear that, oh, actually, that's not the case. And we can actually find our ways to connect with people. And so I think your views on that and your insights will be really helpful. So you're saying that you would then just you go to communities that are aligned with your values or life pillars, and then you would connect one to one. How do you choose the people that you would like to connect with in such communities, for example?
Yeah, yeah, maybe call it intuition, call it, I don't know, heart, being led by my heart. I don't know, but I just feel intuitively called to connect with certain people potentially.
Right.
It's interesting, this conversation about communities, and I've I made a choice to really explore the community connection space more thoroughly. I guess coming up on about a year now, and I've definitely communities are very unique in their own right. Some people manage them and run them in their own unique ways, and so they're definitely not all the same. They are very distinct from one another. The energy, the people that show up, the way they're run, and so if someone might be thinking, oh well, all communities are for extroverts, well, that's just certainly not true, right? Because there are definitely some communities where I feel more aligned than others. And yeah, it's just about, again, just going out there, trying, seeing what works. And if it doesn't, that's
Yeah.
okay. You can always just try something else.
I'm curious to hear if you might have received an advice as you were navigating transition. And for me, certainly, I was seeking for purpose and more impact. And I remember I was stuck. I didn't know where to start, basically. And I was also surrounded by people in the same situation and the same industry. And I wonder if you might have advice for people who are currently feeling that way and want to start with small steps in navigating their transition.
Yeah, what's coming up for me is really along the lines of what I just touched on, which is I, in some of the work I was doing and, exploring all these different, the types of work I was doing previously is a lot of in-person stuff, wasn't really feeling connected with the impact I was making. And I was having a conversation with somebody, and she asked me if you could focus on one of the areas that I'm hearing you are feeling disconnected with, which was a lack of an in person community and also you're not feeling resonance with the impact you're making. If you could focus on one of those two areas just for the next 90 days, not your entire life, what would it be? And I knew right away it was the impact, feeling like I wanted more resonance with that. And that's really what spurred me on to explore the community space more in depth because I often, like I said, I believe earlier on, feeling like I always need to go to the macro and I need to zoom out and think, okay, what's always the this end goal? And thinking, how's this going to affect anybody and everybody instead of just focusing on, okay, what could the next 90 days look like instead of what would this look like for the rest of my life, right? And I think that really helped me just focus on the next best action I could take. And then that was middle of last year, and here we are, February of 25, and it's been a beautiful journey of exploration. And even though I don't know what's coming next, I wouldn't trade that choice for anything.
Yeah. You know, you said this two times, and it's really intriguing because I think most people kind of like assume that when you come out of the transition, it's as if an end destination that most people have figured it out. And I love when you share that because I also share with people that we're all work in progress. You know, those people who have navigated transition, they're also in still in that transition, if that makes sense. It's it's just something that is ongoing, and and I think it helps to put the pressure off and to tell people that well, I've navigated that transition, and I'm still, you know, still figuring this out, and that's okay. I'm okay with it, and which is precisely what you say several times, and which is, in my opinion, it's not easy to be okay that, you know what, I don't know where this is going, but I'm just gonna go with the flow, and it's not something that most people can live with. What do you think?
I think I eventually realized that I can face uncertainty with more of the cliche certain path of, roles that are more defined, defined in the, I guess, cliche sense, but there's still going to be uncertainty there. Or I can lean into a path that feels much more aligned with who I truly am and feel the uncertainty there. And so if there's going to be uncertainty, whatever path I choose, why not choose something that actually feels more aligned with who I am? And that I think was really the mindset shift that has helped me a lot.
Yeah. I love that. It's gonna be uncertain anyways,
Hmm.
both ways. And why not living it slow and then just make things more intentional, and it's more enjoyable to live that way.
100%. So I would not have met so many of the people, including yourself, if I wouldn't have gone on this path. Because I would have just kept on going in what felt like the linear path, and that's fine for those that want to venture that way. But I couldn't keep doing that. I'm
Mm,
glad I'm on this path now, in all of the windiness that it is.
yeah. And one question I always ask is about your definition of success. And one of the reasons why I ask this question is because I want people to hear more kinds of definition of success. Because I certainly grew up knowing that there was only one definition of success, and that is to build career and climb up the corporate ladder or have those fancy titles, right? Like being a doctor, a lawyer, and all of those things. So I like to ask this question. So, Cole, what is your definition of success?
Yeah, I would say part of it is going back to the life pillars, like I mentioned earlier. Because if I can integrate movement, stillness, and connection into all of my days, and then just stack those days on top of each other, I see that as success because that way I'm living in the moment, living in true presence with myself, those around me, and the world around me. And I mean, what's better than that at the end of the day? Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. It's about living in the moment and really living those life pillars for you. Yeah, fantastic. Sounds like a peaceful life.
yeah, to try my best. I feel like this is why these practices are so important for me to cultivate on a daily basis. And sometimes it feels like, oh, I'm just showing up and they're not making a difference, but they really are. And I see it in those moments when I don't want to show up for myself. They're so habitual now that I just show up for myself and by
Yeah,
extension others in the world around me without thinking about it, that it really does make a difference, especially in those tougher moments.
yeah. And we touched on earlier about being kinder to self. I want to hear your point of view on for people, for those who are not kind to themselves, and what might be your suggestion? How can they be kinder to self? Is there a specific practice that you do? Because you seem to be very zen. I mean, are you always this zen at all times?
I, I I appreciate that. Not always. I guess I strive to be, but not always, of course. We ebb and flow with the seasons, I suppose. But I don't know. I think it really comes back to how do I want to feel with it within myself and just trying to make decisions that will cultivate that inner peace. I also think to myself, well, no one can disturb my inner peace unless I allow them to. And so, yes, there are going to be these external factors that will maybe come my way that can throw me off, whether it's people, circumstances, whatever. But having practices in place that actually feel good to me, not because somebody told me they'll make me feel good, but because they feel aligned with me, that really is what makes the difference.
What is the
And so
practice?
I meditate 3 times a day, integrate that
Ah,
stillness 3 times in the day, morning, middle of the day, and in the evening. I also practice visualization every day in the morning as well. And I found myself even reflecting on this recently because I know I have a set time that I dance in the evenings too, but I also found recently that I like to practice footwork patterns just throughout the day with bachata dancing. And it's just a fun way to just practice something that I absolutely love and lights up my soul that I didn't actually realize I was doing until the other day because I'll just be doing things around the house or out and about, and I'll just be practicing footwork patterns. So it's almost just this thing that just kind of happens now that I didn't realize I was even doing. And I think
yeah,
it's unearthing those things within us that light us up so much that we just do them. And
yeah.
we almost don't even realize that they're bringing us so much light and life. And that just permeates outwards towards other people. And I think that's what really makes the difference for me.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing your practices. Was it easy for you to get started on meditation?
Honestly, I think it was because I had preceded it with yoga right before that for about a year at that point. I think
Ah,
I started yoga in January of 2020, and that's been going now for over 5 years. And
yeah,
I think meditation was about a year later, if I remember correctly. Don't remember exactly, but I think it was sometime early in 2021, if I remember right. And I started
yeah,
with probably, 5 minutes once a day. And then, you build up as you go. And then it was twice a day for longer, right? And then eventually now it's 3 times because I realized there are times when I'm feeling the energy is just not where I would like it to be, right? And I'm feeling maybe a little frazzled in the middle of the day. So I added it in the middle of the day, right? And then how do I wind down in the evening more so than I am currently? And so I added meditation to the evenings as well. And so it's
yeah,
all just kind of about stacking about practices throughout your day when you realize, oh yeah, could use something to bring myself into more alignment in this part of my day or this other part.
yeah. Now we know why you're Zen. Cool. Yeah, 3 times a day. That's really good. And I love that the first time that we met, you talk about dancing, right? And I don't know if anyone here noticed, the backdrop of Cole. It's a beautiful one. Yay! So, what does dancing mean to you?
It lights a fire in my soul that nothing else really ever has. Yoga is right there with it, yes, but it's just, I find it to be such a beautiful expression of the human experience. And even to go back to my life pillars of movement and stillness, I find it to be such a beautiful duality that can be expressed in any one moment because there's never just one of those present in any moment because I can be in the midst of a dance move and there's still some moments where I feel very still within myself because I'm in the midst of and flow. of my practice. And then vice versa too. I can feel very still in the mind, but the body is still always moving at least a little bit, right? And so there's always this duality between movement and stillness. And when I'm so in the flow and immersed in dance, that's where the connection to self and others in the world around me comes in. And so I just think it brings in my life pillars really beautifully.
I have shared passion for dancing. Certainly hasn't really put that much of time and energy as I'd like it to be, but I always find it's kind of like a beautiful self-expression where I feel like I could be myself when I dance, and it's just bringing me into a different world. And so yeah, I resonated with what you shared. Thank you. Yeah, the last question. Part of the mission for Changemaker Stories is really to normalize these conversations around non-linear career paths. Absolutely not wanting to dictate people that they have to follow the non-linear career path, but I think it's just to let people know that there is a different path. You don't, if you want it, and you do not have to follow, if this linear path isn't for you, that's okay. There's nothing broken in you, and this is really the mission to really bring the stories of people who actually embrace that path. So I'd like to hear from you your thoughts around non-linear career paths. Be great to hear what you think about it.
Yeah, I feel like going back to what I touched on earlier, where I was following the linear route, which there's nothing wrong with that for the person that wants to do that, but I didn't know that there was another option. And I was just blindly following what others told me to do because didn't know there was another option right in front of me. And once I realized whether it's career or life in general that followed the more squiggly, non-linear route, it felt like a very open, curious, and explorative route that I knew I wanted to venture down. And I've never looked back.
You made it sound so beautiful. Like, wow, a beautiful adventure. If someone had said that to me 6, 7 years ago, I would have said, wow, that sounds so beautiful. Let me give it a try. Wow, I love how you describe things. Thank you, Cole. Thank you so much for being here and just sharing this reflection. I like to call it reflection because I think you made me reflect a lot about life's choices and the way we see things. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here. Is there any last word, last sentence that you would like to share to the audience here? Feel free to share it now.
I would just say, although it can be really difficult, it really just starts with one step and try to lean into your heart as much as you can. Although it might feel really difficult, it really just starts with the one step and your heart knows the way.
That's so beautiful. I think we don't hear or we don't give space to our hearts enough. We are so much in our heads and always use the cognitive level all the time. It's also good to have your brain. We're gifted with the brains. But I think what we ended up doing is just like activating 100% cognitive level and just shutting down the heart. So I love the reminder that give your heart a try and space and listen to it. And sometimes it's the best thing that you could do. Thank you, Cole.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much,
it.
Catherine.